and we're in business. Okay, so today's lesson is on population size and limiting factors. I'm going to click ahead here because obviously you guys are writing. Again, I've done my best to make these slides as tiny as possible when it comes to the amount that you've got to write. 4 things that affect population size. So, when we're thinking about this stuff, we can think about human population on the surface of the earth if we'd like. That's a pretty big population. But we could be thinking just about weeds, all right? You could be in terms of, say, a farmer. You've got a nice soybean field, but you see some weeds out there. We could be talking about the population of those particular things. We could even be talking about the population of the beans in the field themselves, how many plants per unit area you've got. So we could be talking about many populations. We could be talking about a population of bunnies in the forest, right? Or even the trees themselves of a particular species in the forest. So we're essentially calculating things. All right. The easiest way to think about it is to think of it maybe in terms of bunnies, that they can move around. That might be the easiest thing. We talked about rabbits before. So 4 things that affect population size: the birth rate, how quickly they're being born. If they're being born very quickly, the population can be high. Death rate, how quickly they are dying, all right? In the case of the human population, the birth rate exceeds the death rate, and therefore our human population on the earth is going up. If we're talking about a particular area, like a certain forest, we can have immigration, so bunnies coming in from neighboring forests. I don't know why, maybe they didn't like it in the first place. And emigration, organisms leaving that area. So you combine all of those things, and you then have, in the end, what determines the population size. Birth rate and immigration cause the population to go up. Death rate and emigration cause the population to go down. Questions, concerns? All's well? Okay. Limiting factors. I'm going to bring the whole thing up. And because Jess isn't here, we don't have to listen to anybody complain. I'm not. So, what's going to prevent a population from getting completely out of control? And out of control simply means too great, like really great. Too many organisms. Food supply. Is there enough food to feed all the organisms? Again, if we talk about the human population, some scientists believe we are right at the edge of too many humans to feed, and we're experiencing a food supply issue. Again, with humans, it's more of a distribution problem. Some parts of the world have plenty, of food. Other parts of the world, they don't. Weather, right? Obviously, bad weather can have an effect on the death rate, right? The terrible hurricane that struck the Bahamas, about a month ago, right? Obviously, bad weather can have an effect on population. Space availability, not an issue on the surface of the earth at this point, but could you imagine an earth so full of people that we've got to build, tall skyscrapers everywhere, I suppose, right? Like on Star Wars. What planet is that? Rachel, do you know the planet, the city planet? You don't watch Star Wars. What is wrong with people? Everyone should. I don't know which one it is. They go to that. It's where the Senate gathers. What's the planet that the Senate gathers at? It's a city planet. It's okay. It's okay. It's not that important. What's that? I should know this, but it doesn't matter. Okay. I've distracted everyone with Star Wars. I apologize. Let's keep going. Spaceability. Disease. Obviously, disease can, again, increase the death rate, cause the population to change greatly. Competition. If you have too many organisms, you can have them competing for the same materials, whether it's food or whether it's a place to exist, like a niche. You could have competition there. Pollution. Did you find what the name of the planet was? Of course you did. What is it? Coruscant. Coruscant. Yes. Very good. Yeah. It's got a soft C there at the end. Coruscant. That's good. This is going to be out on my website, so that's sad that I didn't know that. I need to brush up on. I need to watch some Star Wars this weekend. Okay. Pollution. Again, increase of pollution can cause an increase in mortality rate. Predator-prey relationship. We're going to look at that a little more closely in a couple of days. Predator, the hunter, right? The prey, what it hunts. You know, if there's an imbalance between predator and prey, that can have an effect. If there's not enough prey, the predator may die off, right? Not enough food. And biotic potential, all right? Some ecosystems just have the conditions perfect for a high birth rate. In other words, the environmental conditions are perfect, the resources are there, there's a lot of room, and so some organisms can just flourish in that particular scenario. So lots of offspring born, and the population can shoot up. Okay? All right? Okay, so those things are called limiting factors. Yep, going back. Now, I must admit, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm grabbing some information out of the textbook. And so I need to have this right here, because this is information that is not right in my brain. Now, this note may feel a little long, but this was another worksheet that I turned into a note, because sometimes it's nice to take notes and just kind of listen. Sometimes it's nice to read. So I've kind of put two things together here. How are we doing, Jamie? And done. Nice. Okay, so that is a sketch of a graph. The POP stands for population, all right? And what I'm talking about here are conditions in an ecosystem. It could be temperature. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? It could be, for, say, an aquatic ecosystem, is it salt water or is it fresh water? And that's called salinity. Is it too saline? Is there too much salt in it? Now, I can put whatever information on there that I want, but I just want to define this. So let's use temperature on the bottom of this one. I'm going to put temperature down here. This could be for humans, all right? Or it could be for a particular type of fish, or it could be even for a plant. Doesn't matter, all right? And so down here at the beginning of my axis, this is like super cold, like Antarctica cold, outer space cold. Doesn't matter, super cold. And up here, this is representing like super hot. Okay? You can think of it like the three little bears and the porridge. This is good. Yes, Goldilocks. Thank you. That's the person I'm thinking of. So this is like the cold porridge, no good, and this is the hot porridge, no good, and then there's the just right in the middle. Okay? If we were to talk about the way organisms can exist in these varying conditions, we end up with a curve that looks like this. All right? Looks just like that. Here's obviously the just right. Okay? Now, you'll notice at the low end and the high end, I left a little bit of room. And that's because at this temperature down here, okay, below that, that organism cannot exist. Human beings in outer space without a spacesuit. Not a good thing, okay? And also up here, all right, beyond a certain temperature, can't exist. Too hot, all right? So this particular range in here, right there, that range between there and there is tolerance. Can it survive there? Basic survival. Way down here, it can survive, but not many, right? Way up here, it can survive, but not many. So tolerance is, can it just live there in the extremes? Optimum is where you get really good conditions where it really can thrive. Perfect conditions for existence. And that's closer in, right? So, you know, can a human being live, you know, could they live on Antarctica where it's like super cold? Probably, but you'd need a lot of help. There wouldn't be a lot of people there. It's not optimal, but it could work, okay? So this range in here is optimum. Optimum. Okay? So that's the difference between the two. Does that graph make sense? Does it look... So remember, population, this means lots of people or lots of organisms, whatever it is. Okay? All right? So again, two terms. Tolerance could eke out a living there, but not barely. But optimal is the best. You can flourish in that situation. Okay, we got a lot of yawning going on. This is not optimal learning conditions by the looks of it. All right, let's keep going. Abiotic factors that affect population size. This doesn't have to be in a box. It's just kind of the way I got the note from a previous teacher. So you can set it up however you want. You could put a little cloud around it, however you want to do it. Remember, abiotic is non-living things. And again, like I said, there was a handout that had this, and I'm just trying to streamline this. I'm actually making it smaller than what it was. Now, you'll notice I put a little page 53 there on the bottom, and that's because I needed to be reminded on where to find the answers. Okay? So you could put that there too if you want. I'm going to break this into two. I'm going to put aquatic up here. Aquatic, and this is going to be terrestrial. All right? In the water or on the ground. And I was going to ask you guys to help me with this, but I'm just going to write it down. So in aquatic ecosystems, non-living things that can affect population size is light. Is there enough light getting into the water so, say, aquatic plants can grow? Okay? Light. This is also important in terrestrial. Light. Is there enough light for the plants to grow? So you can see both effects are important in both. Again, I'm cheating. Temperature. Is it too hot or is it too cold? On that previous graph, I could have put light, right? Is it too bright? Is it too dark? Et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? For terrestrial, temperature, also a factor. Too hot or too cold for a plant or an animal on land. Is there enough nutrients? Oh, and I spelled that wrong. It's right there in front of me. N-U. I don't need an E in there. Why do I need an E in there? Whoops. And I killed that. That's terrible. I get a second chance because it's true down here as well. Nutrients. You might say, why did I split those apart? Because, they seem to be the same in both. And it's true. But it doesn't hurt to think about them separately. Again, is there enough dissolved substances in the water for those particular things to survive, whether it's fish or plants? And is there enough nutrients in the soil, et cetera, for the plants to survive? Here's where it deviates. In terms of terrestrial, is there enough water? And you can see that that's not important in an aquatic ecosystem because there's lots of water in the aquatic ecosystem. All right. In terms of the aquatic ecosystem, they like to use the term salinity. I'll write it because they like to use it, but I'll define it. Salinity. What do we mean by salinity? The presence of what? Yep. Salt. Salt. What's that? The presence of salt. All right? Well, certain ocean-dwelling saltwater fish cannot survive in fresh water. And it probably has something to do with the way the water enters the cells of that particular type of fish. All right? Salt water chemically behaves quite differently than fresh water that doesn't have salt in it. So cells of an organism that have evolved in salt water will behave quite differently than cells in freshwater fish. You have knowledge that is greater than my current knowledge on something called the bull shark. I have no idea. If that's true, perhaps that particular organism has developed a way to exist in both, and therefore salinity would not be a factor for that particular organism. I don't know. I believe you, because I believe you read lots of stuff, but that I don't know. Okay? Yep? I would agree with that in terms of depth. Yeah. Would that not be an abiotic factor, having an optimal population down at a depth? I like that information. I got no problem with adding pressure to that. Yep. 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 Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I would say that that's legitimate pressure. You could add that if you want. I'm not going to add it. It's not in my book. But I agree with you. From a physics standpoint, that's important. That would be like taking a human being here on Earth under the pressure of the air, stick them in outer space without a spacesuit, and that lack of pressure would cause bad things to happen to that particular person that was ejected into outer space. It would be bad. You're right. So pressure, I like that. That's a good addition. Yep. I'm going to keep going here. Notice how now it says biotic. I've switched to biotic. I'm going to keep going. It's always entertaining to go on what is called a thought experiment to imagine what horrific death you would have if you were out in outer space. But I don't know which would kill you first, the lack of oxygen or the pressure. How long can you hold your breath in the water? Look, you've sucked me in. See what you've done? You've got me to hypothesize about this. Yes. Temperature problems. All kinds of things. Have we not seen Guardians of the Galaxy? Right? No? We don't watch Guardians of the Galaxy? You people need to watch more science fiction. Gamora ends up out of her spaceship, and then, I can't think of his name. Star-Lord goes to save her, and obviously they both survive. They get really cold. Okay, let's continue. So obviously, according to Guardians of the Galaxy 1, it is possible. Oh, we also saw it in Star Wars when Princess Leia ends up out there, but she's got the Force to work with too, so that's different. You know. Okay, stop. Stop. We're shutting it down. Robert's now got a question. He's all into it. In terms of biotic factors, if there's like invasive species, that's a good addition to that, but unfortunately, that's not on my list. But we'll talk about invasive species later on, Robert. Sorry, but good place to jump in. All right, I'm going to keep going. Biotic factors. We're done talking about movies. Competition. Competition. I guess invasive species, Robert, would come under competition, right? If invasive species came in, it would compete, and there would be issues, right? Yeah. So I'm talking about more general than specific examples at this point, but we will talk about that later. Okay. Do we know the idea of competition? Something coming in that's going to compete for, say, a food source, then is going to cause issues with the population. Yes?
For biotic, there's no terrestrial.
No, because all of these things can happen within each of the ecosystems, whether something like a zebra mussel comes into an aquatic ecosystem or a purple loosestrife or something comes into a plant system and pushes it out. Okay. All right. I'm just talking about some invasive species there. Predation. Predation. Again, predation is the predator-prey relationship. Is there another animal in the ecosystem that's going to come and try to eat that animal? That's going to affect population size. Is there a predator there? And if there is no predator, maybe the population goes sky high. Parasitism. What an awesome term. I got the P-A-R. A-S-I-T-ism. What's a parasite? Yep, Jay? Yeah, kind of. Robert, what are you thinking? Yeah, an animal that lives off of another animal. So something that comes along and maybe attaches to... no, a tick will leave. Yep. Oh, goodness. Yep, Rachel. A leech, the leech will ultimately leave. Yep. Yeah, the lice will stick around as long as it can, but I'm not sure. A classic one is something called a tapeworm that exists in the digestive system of, well, human beings, right? And it just hangs out in your intestine and absorbs the nutrients that you are trying to absorb. And yeah, so that can have a negative effect on population size. You're going to tell me something disgusting, aren't you, Jay?
I was going to ask you a question.
I don't know very much about them. This is out of my strength. I'd like to keep going. The discussion is awesome, but I want to get done. What do you got? Yes, yeah, and other animals, correct. Yes. I have no idea how they're transferred. I think it's in the feces and I don't know. That's through yeah. So I think they lay the eggs in the feces, and then if you get in contact with the infected feces, and then it ends up in your mouth, then it ends up in your digestive system. Very good. I think that's the thing. Okay, hold on. No. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. Kyla's losing interest here. Mutualism. Mutualism. I didn't even know that this existed till I read it in the book. It's where two individuals benefit each other. In other words, it's like they help each other out. They help both. All right? Notice we're talking about interaction between two things, right? Where competition, there's a battle. Predation, one eats the other, right? Parasitism, one lives off of the other, within the other. Mutualism, they're both helping each other out. I don't know an example of that. Humans, I guess, do that. They help each other out and can, increase their population. Yes.
Those birds that live on rhinos that eat their
Now they also have commensalism. C-O, common, What does it say? It's common, C-O-M-M-E-N. Never heard of it before. S-A-L-S-A-L-I-S-M. And commensalism is one benefit, but the other one isn't harmed. So, good for one, and not bad for the other. You know what I mean? Where a parasite is good for one, but bad for the other, right? This is a good and bad in that the tapeworm doesn't leave you feeling very well.
The shark swimming has that like fish juice,
I agree. It's not going to kill the shark, right? The shark doesn't care, but it benefits one. I think that would be the bird that's picking the bugs out of the whatever. You know what I mean? Doesn't hurt it. It might be mutualism. It might be benefit to the other one because it gets the bugs off of them. Because it protects them. Might be mutualism. So this one's good for one and what are we going to say here? Good for one and okay. Oh, I like that. Okay, but it's not like it's good. Like okay for other. Never heard that term before. Yes. What about it? Yeah, I think so. I agree with that. Okay. I would like to continue. Now, I'm going to draw that curve with you. Oh, I know. But this is just the way it is some days. Let's talk about population curves now. Here, let me give you the light at the end of the tunnel. Last slide right there. This one, then this one. Okay. Now, the numbers are not important on this curve. Hey, Chloe, if you could not do that, that'd be great. So, the numbers are not important on this curve. So let's write everything down. All right, let's write everything down, and then I'm going to show you how to draw the curve. Okay? And you don't have to write the little tiny things on the bottom because that's a reminder for me on what I need to do on this graph. So just write everything down. It could be, you don't even need to leave it left and right. You could just write it at the top, and then we'll draw the graph underneath it. It doesn't have to be left and right. So the two types of population growth that we can study is something called open versus closed. And I've talked a little bit about this already. Open systems, things can come and go. So if it gets, the population gets too high for one thing, it says, forget about it, I'm moving out. A closed population, there's boundaries. Things can't come and go. So they're locked in a position. There's no leaving. An example of a closed could be like a petri dish that we've put some bacteria in and locked it closed. Another weird example of a weird example of a closed system for humans. Let's go back to the movies. No, science fiction. Is it Divergent? You've seen the Divergent movies? You know, in the first ones, they're locked into the city. They can't get out. That would be like a closed system. In the end, they do beat something. Hunger Games. Is that a locked one as well? They're kind of locked into... Oh, you mean when they're battling inside the game. I like that. That would be a closed system. That's a closed system. Yes, no, but they're talking about the game itself is a closed system. You see what I mean? Once the combatants are in there, they're not able to leave, and you can see what happens to that population at the end. It declines, right? Which is exactly what we're going to see with our graphs, right? So good thing we watch the movies. Some people who didn't see Star Wars, you've got some movies to watch this weekend. All right. I also like Harry Potter references. Okay. Well, we'll try to bring some. See, but Harry Potter's not good in science because magic is not science.
Isn't it chemistry? Like, it's
No, but you see, magic is literally the breaking of two fundamental laws: the law of conservation of energy, creating energy out of nothing, and the law of conservation of mass, creating stuff out of nothing. And once you have that, you don't have science anymore. So it's tough to bring Harry Potter into the science class.
How would you, as a
Scientist.
scientist,
Yep.
watch Harry Potter? Like,
Well,
how
once
do
you throw those two rules out, and you then augment the rules that they somehow have some ability to draw on another energy source that may be in a parallel universe. Maybe they're drawing it in from a parallel universe. Maybe they have the ability to draw energy and matter from a parallel universe that other human beings don't. Then it becomes science.
So you're talking about, like, dimensions.
Yeah.
How is that science?
Okay. Look at, we were hoping to make some graphs here today. I got some work. We're getting this done. This is the last one, then I'm talking. Yes, correct. Science fiction. We put the fiction on the end. Good job. Okay, so to draw this graph, I want you to simply sketch a y-axis. Nothing magical about it. Hey, nice job. Good axis. And an x-axis. And just put population on the side. Pop. And on the bottom, just put time. Okay? And this is years. This could maybe be simulating population of a country. You know, we're in the millions. Don't worry about the units. All open population will have this curve. So in the end, the first shape you want to draw is a curve that goes up and then gets too high and comes down, and then up and then down and up and down and up and down and up and down. It doesn't really matter. Okay, oh, that's nice. That's good. Beautiful. All right. Now, the overall trend is that even though the population fluctuates, it fluctuates around this certain value. So now what do I want you to do? I want you to take, it doesn't have to be a different color, draw a line through there, but I want you to draw it all the way over to that spot right there. Okay? And this population right here is the carrying capacity. I don't know if you can write it in, depends on how big you've got. Carrying capacity. I just wrote there carrying cap. That's the maximum population it can handle around that fluctuation. Okay? All right? So what happens is, at the very beginning, there's not many organisms. Lots of room, lots of resources, things are reproducing like crazy. And down here where the curve is heading up, this is rapid growth. All right? Oh, sorry. I got that backwards. This is slow growth. I apologize. Hopefully you're not using a pen. And that's because the curve is fairly flat. Things start off slowly. There's not a lot of organisms. And therefore, there's not a lot of reproductive mates and pairs. So therefore, it grows fairly slowly. All right. Then, once there reaches a certain population, there's enough reproductive pairs that the population really takes off. This is our rapid growth. Rapid growth. Remember when we were calculating slopes? That's a little slope. It's not very steep. That's slow. That's a steep slope. That's rapid growth. Okay? All right? One last thing. And I don't know whether we can draw it on here. I hope we can. I've made a mess of this. I'll use red. I think we're going to come down here. Down to here. All right? See where I've picked that spot where it's got to its highest thing? The time it takes in there to do that is called the stabilization period. Bill, it's right here in front of me. Stabilization period. Okay. All right. Stabilization period. It takes time to get to that maximum thing. If we were to look at human population curves, if you look at human population graphs and you look at it online, human population graphs are some believe we're here, right, where it's really shooting up. Some believe we're here. Oh my goodness, any more people, and there's going to be wars and famine, and it's going to come down. It's hard to say where we are in it. We're definitely not into that spot on the earth because we're good at humans at using resources that we have at hand to, you know, keep that bouncing around. Okay.
So the overshoot was from before?
No, we don't know where we're at on the curve. We don't know where we're at on the curve. I'm saying that this is a theoretical curve. The overshoot will be that people are still reproducing, yet say wars or famine or things like that are starting to kick in. That's going to cause a lot of death. So something's going to happen. It could be from a war in the future, right? Or running out of food. And then the population will decline, but then the war will stop because there's more room, and then, you know what I mean? And then you get that rebound effect. Okay. All right. I would love to finish this off, and then tomorrow just becomes graphing exercise, and I'll change the due date. This is going to change. There's my question mark, right? I knew that we weren't going to get through this. So let's finish off. A closed population curve. Organisms cannot come and go. And I am not interested in the labeling of this graph. To be serious, I simply just looked for a closed graph online. I'll show you what I want you to draw on it. Organisms cannot come and go. Over time, the net population becomes zero due to limiting factors. In other words, we're talking about, you know, the Hunger Games is a great example, right? Because you put the people of the game inside that controlled thing. Their job is to compete for each other and be predators, right? And in the end, you know, that population declines down to zero. I guess it's not a good example because they're not left in there long enough to reproduce. You know what I mean? I guess if they let the time of the game go on as long instead of changing the conditions. Do we know the movie we're talking about? The Hunger Games? Good. I'm glad we know that. So what do I want? So example, let's just put here bacteria. Bacteria in a sealed, that's not right. Sealed Petri dish. Petri dish. All right. So what do I want you to draw? I want you to draw, again, we'll put the axes. We're going to put population. And in this one, I really just want you to have the fact that it's going to end up down there like that. Time. Okay? All right? Okay. That's the end of that for today. In terms of timing, that's good. Stop.